everyone, and welcome to another episode of OpenUp at the Workplace. My name is Valerie, and I'm here with Marta today, our head of people at OpenUp. Marta, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic that it keeps popping up in our conversations, and that's feedback.
Yes.
What is your experience, and how do you see it at OpenUp? How we do feedback?
Right. Yeah. So really interesting topic. Some people might think, okay, it's too much going into the basics. Of course, we all know feedback is really important for people to grow and develop themselves. Of course, we know it's also really important for organizations to develop and mature. But I think in my experience, it also becomes almost a little bit like a buzzword, right? Mm-hmm. It's everyone knows the right way to do this, the right thing from a theoretical perspective, but how to really achieve a culture of feedback in practice, that's a completely different story. Of course, not to say that we have everything figured out, but we like to try new things, we like to experiment, and we like to push ourselves. Some of the things that we do at OpenUp is a lot of role-playing with the leaders. So at least once a quarter, we have a session where we role play, having difficult conversations with each other, giving feedback, and so on. We really found that helps. And it was also important to define, okay, what is our vision? What is our stance around feedback? And here we found a model that we think follows very well our culture and our values. That is the Radical Candour model. Mm-hmm. And it's all about challenging directly, which is also very much in line with sort of the startup culture of doing things fast and making things happen, but also caring personally. And that, of course, also really speaks to OpenUp's core values. Just to summarize, Radical Candour model, we do a lot of role-playing. And of course, this is, again, a little bit perhaps too basic, but 360 feedback is really important. So making sure that the feedback loops are happening in the organization across levels, across functions, peer-to-peer, and so on. Yeah.
That's interesting. How do you make sure that the 360 happens, that everyone gives feedback to the manager and the manager to the team?
Right. So, of course, you can have formal programs for that in place. So every company will have some kind of performance development program and process with maybe some formal mechanisms in place where you ask your peers feedback, for example. But I think, of course, to also bring it back a little bit to the well-being at the workplace topic that is so close to our hearts, for people to feel safe, to feel psychologically safe, to be able to speak up, to challenge directly is really important. It's really a prerequisite to be able to have a real feedback culture, that people feel like they can express themselves and they can voice their opinions if they have them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's true. I can totally imagine that that's really a prerequisite, as you say, for giving feedback. I've seen we've also given a session, right? A lunch and learn session on feedback here at OpenUp.
Yes, indeed. So we're experimenting recently with doing lunch and learns and really bringing topics that come up also from people themselves, topics that colleagues would want to learn more about. Also topics that maybe we have informal experts among ourselves that we can all learn from. And I think it was a few weeks ago we did a session on Radical Candour specifically. So it's also good to indeed bring it back every once in a while, remind everyone of what are the principles, and really to shift that perception from sort of feedback as a negative thing, because let's be honest, it's hard to do, right? To feedback as a gift in a way, because if you don't know constructively where you can improve, how can you improve? Yeah,
that's true. And how do you do it in your team?
So we follow pretty much the model that we have at OpenUp in general, where we have a monthly development conversation one-on-one. And we also have these mechanisms indeed where we ask feedback from peers and so on and so forth. But something that we did that was really useful is we had a session where we all shared a little bit our preferred way of receiving feedback. So that we could all have it into consideration, and some small things. Some people prefer it verbally, some people prefer it in writing, these kinds of things. And of course, we can't always accommodate to everybody's preferences, but at least knowing it really helps to then be a bit more mindful of your message.
Yeah. What is your preferred way?
I think for me, it's always in the moment, right? If there is something that I'm doing that could be done differently or should be done differently, of course, I want to know as early as possible to be able to correct it. And then, of course, I think we all also like having a little bit of a moment of reflection, right? There are two levels here. I would say one is the task level, really feedback in the moment, and another one is more of a reflection. and more perhaps feedback more in general about how you're doing. I always like to operate at those two levels.
And having it as a combination of things.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Marta. That was very helpful.
Thanks, Valerie.